As footage of the wildfires on Maui shows the war zone-like destruction of Hawaii, people are becoming outraged at this book, Fire and Fury, not because they're capitalizing on using a tragedy to get a #1 best-selling book on Amazon, but because it was published on August 10th. Where ABC states the fires were only reported on the 8th, and the fires continued until at least the 13th, which is 3 days after the book was published. But apparently the author thought it would go until the 11th, but reviewing the sample pages, they believe the fire only took 6 lives, which the number is now over 100. And then they go into how much pollution, carbon dioxide, and climate change impacted this fire. Now these pages do seem horribly written for a doctor, but I plugged in those pages to 3 different AI content detectors, and none of them believed it was written by AI. So this likely was a literal human trying to cash in on their assumptions by writing a $17 book to convince you that reality matches their worldview. Because this book was written before we saw the footage of the power lines that likely started the fire.
Power line just went down. Tried my little water hose, but see them right there. That's the power line that started, and all of that is still burning. Fire truck still never come yet.
Where it is now believed that it was Hawaiian Electric's fault for not clearing the grasses around the wires, as allegedly their focus was going to renewable energy and apparently a push for inclusivity in the workplace. Not to mention their officials didn't want to release water in Maui because of equity.
The commission is responsible per our authorizing statute to protect and manage all water resources in the state. So really my motto is always like, let water connect us and not divide us. Like we can share it, but it requires true conversations about equity.
And didn't want to use the sirens to warn people because those are only for tsunamis.
Do you regret not sounding the sirens?
I do not. The sirens, as I mentioned earlier, is used primarily for tsunamis, and that's the reason why.
So no one factor contributed to how much destruction hit the island, but that's not where the murkiness about the situation ends, as I did my video to try to bring awareness and raise funds, but we now see reports of the authorities actually blocking aid from getting to the impacted residents.
The government withholding every single one of our donations because we are not a part of FEMA and Red Cross. So none of this is eligible for giving out. Tell me why. I have no freaking clue.
And it's not just random social media users, as professional surfer Kai Lenny reports the same.
Right now, something big is happening. We've been trying to get insulin flown in from Kona over to Kapalua, but our flights are being blocked by the Department of Health because it wasn't approved by them.
And it's so bad that people are actually having to jet ski in supplies to Americans as if they were being occupied by enemy forces.
We need to get some of this stuff out to the people in Lahaina. If you can't post it, come out here and tell your friends. We're here, man. We got so much stuff. And yeah, people need it, man. The stuff you guys are bringing, it's unreal. Thanks. They're gonna need it.
Okay, bro. You guys want more propane?
So I would like to donate to the people like Kai trying to help, but then I see snakes like United Way trying to get in there. You know, the same United Way that had a CEO use over $200,000 of funds for himself. The same United Way that had a CEO get convicted to prison over misuse of donations. And honestly, this occurrence goes back to the 90s, and their internal issues continue until at least 2021. And the only reason I know how suspect companies like United Way are is because when I was in college and worked for this huge company, I remember how United Way would come in trying to shake us down for money. Some slimy woman in a designer suit panhandling in front of a whole bunch of broke college kids because natural disasters happen. It was shady back then, and it seems shady right now, as I still do want to help the residents of Hawaii, and even though I didn't make much off that video, I still want to send all of it to help with the relief efforts. But I don't know much about those other companies listed, and I don't trust any of these companies that staff multiple millionaire executives to actually provide relief for anybody. But the equal parts insane and sad aspects about this tragedy is not only the politically driven book, authorities blocking supplies, and shady companies trying to capitalize. These all seem like tinfoil hat theories, but are rooted in things that are actually happening. Now, I'm not going to go into certain Mountain Dew related theories, or even the bizarre precision that the wildfires took to avoid million-dollar beachfront properties. But in the same sense, not far from it, because land grab is on several residents' minds.
Investors and realtors calling the families who lost their home, offering to buy their land.
Is these people coming in and trying to buy up their land. It just happened.
There is a massive opportunity for land grab from corporate entities that don't have nothing to do with the Lahaina community. We need to urge our leaders to create policies now, because those things do take time.
So now the Hawaiian governor wants to protect landowners from people buying their land right after the fires, which sounds noble until you listen to what he wants to do.
I'm already thinking about ways for the state to acquire that land so that we can put it into workforce housing, to put it back into families, or to make it open spaces in perpetuity as a memorial.
Which is convenient, as it was reported a few weeks before the fires, the governor made an emergency proclamation that waives or modifies regulatory procedures to produce more housing, which gives them alternate approval procedures for none other than the historic preservation he just mentioned. And residents were even upset back then because it gets rid of protections against inappropriate development, where they claim it won't approve luxury or resort housing, but also said the rule won't address housing prices as it's not feasible to define luxury housing. And probably the worst coincidence is earlier this year they proposed using $75 million to build housing on Lahaina, which is the same exact spot that just got taken out by the wildfires. And this is a great time to address this video sponsor, My Will to Live. I have a great family, great relationship, great friend group, flourishing career, and would never want to disappear. So if anything were to happen to me now, this video would be the breadcrumbs to find who is responsible. And I say this trying to be somewhat lighthearted about a very serious tragedy, but honestly, I think it's just a coping mechanism at this point. Because when this first happened, President Joe Biden avoided talking about it between vacations. And when forced to address it, he said this.
Will you come talk about the Hawaii response, Mr. President?
Then just seemed to smirk about it when he was asked about the rising death toll, with his press secretary saying she doesn't know what he's going to do.
Does he want to travel there eventually to survey the damage and meet survivors?
So obviously I don't have anything to announce at this time.
Despite the fact that apparently she accidentally tweets what Biden's supposed to tweet on her account. But now, it's reported that Maui disaster relief may be caught up with Ukraine, as the Biden administration seeks $12 billion in emergency funding to extend disaster relief, but also simultaneously requests double that amount for Ukraine military spending.
My wife Jill and I are going to travel to Hawaii as soon as we can. That's what I've been talking to the governor about. I don't want to get in the way.
And I, for one, am just sick and tired of seeing this. I remember when Trump was in office, and they couldn't hammer out a relief package for Americans that were locked down. Trump told Democrat Speaker of the House Pelosi, just send me a package that cuts checks for Americans with nothing else attached, and Trump would sign it. But apparently, Congress couldn't do that. And I'm not just blaming Democrats, because I know the Republicans have their hand in that pot too. But what a ridiculous world we live in right now, where Americans need help. Apparently they're blocking unauthorized contributions so much that supplies need to be sent in on sea-doos. And the only way we can help our fellow Americans is if some other country's military gets their fair share of double what we get. Or alternatively, you could just first send your money to be filtered through some shady organization that constantly gets in trouble with the law. America, where your suffering only matters when someone rich can get richer off the footage. Because as Biden's speech went on, it only got worse.
But then, when I signed the bipartisan infrastructure again, which I'm the first one to cut the federal debt by $1,700 billion. $1,700 billion cut.
Yes, he thinks he's cutting the debt by $1.7 trillion, despite the fact that it's apparently increasing by $5.2 billion every single day for the next decade. So I don't want to be a doomer and say it's all going to collapse soon, because I think it already did. When being the resistance is helping Americans recover from disaster and marching us closer to World War III is patriotic, I genuinely fear for our future. So let me know in the comment section if you know any actual ways to get support to Hawaiians. I saw individual GoFundMes, but I don't know how to verify them. I saw certain organizations that I trust, but I don't know if those resources will be blocked from actually getting to Lahaina. So if you have some insight on this, please let me know. And if you appreciate my concise, sometimes lighthearted commentary, hopefully I've earned your subscription, then go check out the video on how rich homeless advocates are starting to dress like pimps.